The HSA contribution limits are adjusted every year for inflation. And when you dig into it, you can project the way that they might be going. Unlike other items like 401k maxes and your Social Security cost of living that get adjusted in the fall, the HSA contribution for next year is announced in the spring. I've dug into Section 223 and Section 1 of the US Tax Code, and I called the Treasury Department to try to crack the code on how HSA contributions are set. Let's see where those HSA contribution limits are headed for 2025. I'm Mr. Retirement, and I want you to get more income, pay less in taxes, and avoid big retirement mistakes. Subscribe to Mr. Retirement to get my updates on the retirement, investment, and tax planning you need to have a great retirement. You might be familiar with how Social Security cost of living grows over time, where it's based on something called the CPI-W, and you'll see that announced in October of each year. With HSAs, though, it's based on something called chained CPI, and what's interesting about that is they have this place where they round it down to $50, because who wants to figure out what the contribution limit is of $3,992 or whatever it might be. And they changed the rules back in 2016. So I've gone through and I have found the chain CPI for each of these different months because it goes based on a year, but that year is March to March. Well, in April of every year, you get the release of the March CPI, so you can actually do some projections. Again, it's based on 2016 numbers of the single and the couple, and it's supposed to grow every single year with chained CPI rounded to the $50 amount. You notice here how I've put some numbers, and I'll put links to that in the video, but you see where it's supposed to go. So the next year in 2017, that $33.50 and $67.50, they went to $33.67 and $67.84. Well, the Treasury said, let's go with $3,400 for single and $67.50 for couple. I get the $67.50 for couple because that's exactly how things are written. Let it grow by inflation, round it down to the $50 amount. I got a feeling they just didn't want to have no increase in the contribution limits for the single individuals if they're uploading it and increasing it for the couples. What's interesting in 2024 is there was an announcement saying that the limits for 2024 are now $4,150 for a single and $8,300 for a couple. That's the greatest increases in HSA history. What's really interesting about it is if you look at it, those increases should have been larger and should have happened in 2023. I'm seeing where the numbers were in 2022. On the right-hand side, I have the actual numbers. On the left-hand side, I have the numbers of where they were that they determined it should be. So you see that's where it was in 2022. But there is an 8% increase into the next year, where 2023 is a single. They could have got away with $4,000 of HSA as single and $8,000 as a couple. I'm thinking in 2022, when they made this choice to increase how much you can contribute to the HSA for 2023, I wonder if they just didn't believe the inflation numbers, or they just didn't want to have that big jump on there. And then, of course, when it jumped, again, not nearly as much, but it jumped 4.8%. And the numbers brought it up to where it should have gone to 41.82, 84.27. And of course, you've got to round down. They said, well, we've got to make up for this. We're under there. We've got to catch up. And they did 41.50 for single, 8,300 for couple. That's the max for 2024. Of course, you see the couple is probably about $100 away from it away where it should be, but you can tell that they really try to get the single and couple to be roughly where the couple is about double the single amount, and they've got about $50 leeway in each direction. So when you add all these numbers up, you add in the 3.7% CPI that has happened in a one-year period through March, the single number for next year, 2025, ought to be 43.36. The couple number ought to be 87.36. You take that 4,300 and you drop it down, because that's what you're supposed to do, is round it down to the $50 amount, and you get 4,300. Even though you could argue for the couple going up to 8,700, I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll do 8,650, keeping in line with their tradition of let's double the single amount for the couple and maybe give it a $50 leeway. So you've got now my projection before they've announced it of where the 2025 amounts for the HSA contribution are likely to head. We'll see when they get the actual announcement announced in a few weeks. And of course, it's still 2024. So focus a lot on maxing out your 2024 HSA if you can, and then look forward to where the HSA might be headed for 2025. Now, it's important to get the most out of your retirement time, not just the most out of your retirement numbers. To learn how to live a purposeful and regret-free life, check out my next video. I'll see you there.